Hello there everyone, today we're going to do this. This is a pike fly in the chartreuse and yellow scheme, and this is one of the flies that I've had the most success with so far this year. It really is a cool pattern. It's a fairly simple fly, but it really fishes well, and it combines a lot of different things that makes this fish really well. The first thing we need is we need a hook, and I'm gonna use the Arex Light Predator in 6.0. That's my all-time favorite hook for all stuff pike-ish, if you can say that. I'm not sure you can, but I just did. And then I need a fairly large tungsten bead. So I'm gonna add a tungsten bead to the fly here to add some weight to make sure that this fly will sink. Because sometimes the fish skull that we're going to use for this can have the effect that there can be some air inside there, and in order to counter that and make sure that your fly fishes from the second it hits the water, then that's what we're going to do. So I add the hook to the vise, and the first thing we do is this is a fly that is built in two sections. We have a section all the way down here towards the hook end, and then we'll have another section that is basically built up kind of identical. So I'm just gonna tie some thread here to have a sound foundation for my materials. And then we're going to have a part of the fly that is without any materials, because sometimes you add too much materials and your fly does not look realistic. It does not look like something like a fish. So the first thing we need is a bundle of bucktail, and for this pattern I'm going to go with the chartreuse bucktail. I think I've used quite a lot of. This has been fairly well used. So I'm going to take a bundle of bucktail here, just find the right size, like so. And this is going to be, as I said, the tail part. And I do not tie this reverse because that would make this stand out too much, and I do not want this. This is going to be kind of like the tail of the fly. So basically I tie it down rather carefully, but without too much pressure, to keep it kind of keep it kind of straight here, pointing straight out towards the back. And then further up along, I'm gonna clamp down and ensure that it's fastened and stays in place. So like that. That's the tail part. Then I'm gonna take some flash. This is Hedron Flashaboo in pearl yellow. Very nice, very nice color. And I do not want this to be too much. This is going to be, it's bright enough in its own right. So I do not want to have too much flash, because in the May sunshine, then too much flash can actually deter pikes sometimes. I know that sounds crazy and a bit contrary to what I said, but it's nice to have something that is not as blingy or as flashy in your box, along with all the big flash flies. So I tied it so that the ends of this flash is going to be slightly longer than the bucktail. It's going to be kind of like have a tail effect. And then I turn the rest of the flash around here. I can easily just cut off all that. We don't need these stumps here. Again, it does not matter how thorough you are with this. This is just going to be in the middle of the fly. It doesn't have any effect whatsoever on the pattern. But like this, then I'm going to take some. And as you can see, I don't have that much left in this, but this used to be a very large piece. But I've tied a lot of these simply due to the fact that they have been producing very well. So I take a piece of Icelandic sheep. I think this is going to be the final fly that I can tie from this piece. Some Icelandic sheep. You do not want a too large a bundle here in the end. This is a bit long for me, so what I'm going to do is I'm simply just going to tear it. And that gives me some fairly nice ends that looks fairly nice, even though they have been. I do not cut them. I simply tear them apart. Then I put this over to to kind of give it that, make the chartreuse be kind of covered in a halo of yellow. And that looks just absolutely freaking awesome. Like so. Woo-hoo-hoo! There you go. And that's the tail section. So I'm gonna cut off this. I'm gonna make a whip finish. And then I'm gonna plaster this with some Sabagap, just to make sure that this stays in place. Like that. Like so. Then some Sabagap. Just add some of that, like that. Then this is definitely staying put. Then I take my thread and then I start anew, just about 1 centimeter or so from the head here. And then actually what I do is kind of the same thing I just did all over again, except for the fact that I have a tungsten bead. So I'm just tying some threads over that, just to make sure it stays there. And this thread is very, very strong. It's a 100 denier GPS thread, so my cone head will stay in place. My tungsten bead will stay in place, like this. Then I'm just gonna cover this with some tying thread in order to get the right, to have something to tie onto. And then I'm gonna take some bucktail here. Some chartreuse bucktail. And the idea here is, because you don't have a very voluminous body, you will have something that is fairly more see-through and is more lifelike. Just gonna take out the shortest of the bucktail here. And you do not want this to be fully lengthed, because then this fly will have the wrong property. So probably this should be around half, reach out to about half the length of the tail. Again, I'm making a few turns on the tying thread just to fasten the bucktail before I really apply the pressure. And I'm gonna tie this all the way up to the eye. Like so, or almost up to the eye, because what I want here is I want, as you can see now, as perfect taper, is I want a lot of materials and I want a lot of bulk on my head here, because that will make life a lot more easy for me to fill out the fish skull. Because if you have filled it out with thread and stuff like that, it will not be filled with air that will keep your fly floating, and that is something you do not want for this. This is not a floating fly. This is a fly that sinks and fishes a bit deeper. So that was the first step. Then again, I'm taking a small amount of flash here, again using the yellow pearlish, the pearl yellow Flashabou, just the ordinary one, not the Magnum, like so. Gonna tie this down around there. There's just one that is annoying, like so. There you go. Fold this over, tie down again. Then I'm gonna take the last piece of Icelandic sheep. If you haven't encountered the Icelandic sheep before, it's very similar to a lot of other stuff that is out there. And really, it's a really cool product, because it does not soak up too much water, but it has kind of like the same effects as as craft fur, let's say, for instance. The difference is that you have this in very, very, very long, instead of just being like this or so. So you could do a nice dubbing loop with this as well and stuff like that. This was a bit too long for me, so I simply just. And it's not often you hear that phrase, that was a bit too long, but for the tapering and for this fly to look as it should, then that was a bit long. So I simply just distribute it here between my fingers so it will fit all the way around, like that. And then I'm gonna make a couple of loose turns of thread before I apply some pressure again, like so. And there you have the halo effect once more. The tapering of this fly is nice. It's relatively see-through, and you have the weight and everything. So every single thing about this pattern is something I've taken quite a lot of consideration into in order to make this type of fly fish as good as possible. Also, since there is a few ingredients in here. It's a relatively cheap fly to switch out with a lot of colors and stuff like that, and I like that. Fast and relatively cheap. The last thing we need besides the head is a grizzly marabou feather, and these feathers are just absolutely awesome. They're a bit more. They're more expensive than ordinary marabou, and I think that's probably due to the fact that it's probably not an easy process to dye these with the striations. But in a bag you get a lot of feathers, and each and every one of these feathers has been selected for their good quality. So what this means is you actually get a lot of usable feathers for your monies. So when you buy a cheap package of marabou, you sometimes encounter some of the feathers are not up to the standards and not ideally suited for making big pike flies, hackles. But the feathers in these packages are, and that's very nice. So they are more expensive, definitely, for sure, but the effect is just awesome, both in the vise and in the waters. And basically, I just try to keep track of all these feathers here, whilst I turn the hackle here. And otherwise, I can pull all of these out with my dubbing with my dubbing needle afterwards. And then I'm gonna make a final turn all the way up here at the eye. It doesn't matter how much of the feather, how much distance you have between each individual turn of this feather, because it's all going to be covered by the head, which again will ensure that the fly here is strong and durable. So basically, I'm just gonna hold that, and then I'm gonna clamp down there. Also, this means, because some of these feathers get a quite thick hackle stem at the end, but that's okay, because that will simply again help fill out the bulk of the head here. So applying some thread here to make sure it stays nice and strong, and then I'm gonna take my dubbing needle here. I could take my brush as well, and simply make sure all the fibers here are nice and combed out, not clinging to one another. And as you can see, that last marabou hackle gives it some bulk up in the head part that makes it look a lot more like the tapering is right, and it's more dense toward the head, which would be the case also with a baitfish that made whip finish. And then I need to get I've tied so many flies, I've gone out of fish masks. I'm just gonna get one. So a fish mask in 8mm. Looks like this. This is gonna fit nice and snugly over there, and in order for me to get it to stay in place, I simply take my sabber gap. It was just I tried this pattern out and this way of tying flies this year. I've been doing something similar for a lot of years, and they really produce well. But the thing that convinced me was that the last time I was fishing, I didn't get a lot of strikes, and I was kind of annoyed. So I changed to this, and then things really started to happen, including a fish of 1.23 m, just absolutely awesome big fly. Big pike. So I added some sabber gap into the head. I simply just took out this and just coated the inner side of this. And you can also, if you like, just add a bit more glue here to the front of this. This way you won't need to tie it down, but if you think you like that better, you can of course do that. You can simply just apply some tying thread up here to make sure that the head will not fall off. I've filled this fairly much, so I'm pretty sure that's not going to happen. But and should it do so anyway, you can always just mesh it back on there. But like this, then I'm gonna add the eyes. I'm gonna take some super glue here and add into the dentation. I'm gonna add a bit more glue into the head here, just to make sure, like that. Taking my eyes here, and I really like these chartreuse and black with orange pupil. Those are fairly nice looking for this pattern. Gives a lot of contrast and well, they just look awesome on a chartreuse yellowish fly, like this color scheme. The same on the other side, and as I said, fairly simple way of doing pike flies. And of course you can add, if you like, you can add a bit of wire here with some beads on it for your wriggle tails and stuff like that. There's a ton of different variations over this way of doing things, but this is basically, it's fairly simple, it's highly effective, it fishes well, it has the built-in weight, so it will fish deep. You can of course leave that out if you want something to fish over the weeds and stuff like that, but this is an easy not that expensive way of tying highly efficient and proven pike flies that really does the job. So there you have it. Thank you for watching.